What up guys, Alex here. It's been a while since I made a video. I think the last video I made was just kind of walking through both the wide body and the 89 there and talking about my recent milestone or major accomplishments with the dyno results. And if you didn't watch that video, please go back and watch it. It highlights that car, the wide body, getting a remarkable 1,244 wheel horsepower at 28 pounds of boost, and my 89 with the VG33 making 838 wheel horsepower at 41 pounds of boost. Both examples of what you could do with a car for sure. I mean, I am, again, as I said in the last video, just speechless how a VG33 can make 838 wheel horsepower. And I don't, the VK56, which is in the wide body, it's not really, a popular motor choice, right? I mean, you got a lot of LS guys out there. LS is a phenomenal motor, really well proven motor. And then you got like, the Coyote, the Ford equivalent, which is there's various displacements people choose for that, but both very proven platforms. And the VK56 is, like, in my opinion, the underdog. It makes a lot of good horsepower. But anyway, for today's video, laugh all you want, I'm just changing the oil in the 89. Now I get it. Everyone who generally has a Z31 knows how to change their own oil, and that's great. That's wonderful. But I think what I'm going to show today, and why I want to show it today, is what makes my oil change a little bit different. And yes, it still uses engine oil, right? Fully synthetic in this case. And yes, it has an oil filter. In my case, a stainless steel oil filter that, I'm sorry, not stainless steel. The mesh screen is stainless steel, but the aluminum, it has aluminum billet housing. But my setup for the oil filter and the oil cooler is a very unique and different setup. I kind of want to show that. Again, it's one of those things where, it's not necessarily like me trying to brag or toot my horn, but it's so it should show you, like, hey, this is something you can do. This is something different. Here's how I did it. Maybe you can do it this way, and maybe it inspires you to do something similar to mine, or maybe you see something I could have done better, and maybe you do that better, right? And you tell me about it. Maybe then I correct my way. But anyways, it's just an oil change, but I thought maybe it'd be worthwhile to show you guys. So I got the 89 already staged on the lift, and let's go ahead and get it up there so we can change the oil. Before we do that though, I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood. Obviously you don't need to really have the hood and popped engine bay accessible until you are ready to pour oil, but I figure having any bit of light coming down where the oil filter normally is probably better than none. So here it is in all its infamous glory, my custom intake, the precision, blah, blah, blah. So very clean engine bay, really enjoying how well it's running. So let's go ahead and get up in the air. And I apologize, lifts are kind of loud, but let's just get it up there and show you how I do it. And I don't think I've shown you guys an under viewpoint of the car yet. I think I did in the wide body in a progress video I made, but let's just see how well I can show you guys what I did for the 89. So I'll let it go up there. Obviously the lift is kind of loud, and it sounds like I need to rebalance the tension cables here, because you can hear the locks. They're not simultaneous. The locks need to be almost hitting exactly the same time, if not perfectly the same time. But I just need to recalibrate the tension cables. So let it get up there first. All right, that's good. I think, let me go one more. All right, that's good. So you got it sitting on the locks now. And normally when I'm doing work on a car lift, or a car that's on the car lift, I'm usually doing more than just an oil change. I'm usually like dropping the transmission or dropping the diff or doing exhaust work. In that case, I really like to use these T-handle jack stands, but I'm just changing oil. I've had the jack or the car up on this lift 1,000 times. I feel okay doing it as it is without putting those up there, but you guys can criticize me all you want. That's okay, I'll take it. So let's start from the front of the car, nose to back, and kind of show you what I got going on. And before I get started, I kind of want to give a disclosure here. This is my first car that I got when I was 16 years old. I've had this car roughly 24 years now. And, it's my learning platform here. There's things I did well on this car, recently, did really well. but there's a lot of things I did terrible in this car, like terribly fitting things, cutting things. And so what you're gonna see is like the evidence of how I learned and things I made mistakes on, and I'm okay talking about those things. I'm okay disclosing those things because I'm human just as much as everyone else, and there's a lot of mistakes I made along the way. But I'm gonna talk about those and say, hey, look at this, I did this wrong, don't make the same mistake I did, and it's gonna take X amount of work or materials to fix my problems. But so anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I want to kind of point out here, which is driving me crazy. So if you look at my front nose here, and I got the Gary Moltar Shiro front lip. This is probably the last one that Gary made before he sold the mold over to the zstore.com. Not knocking the zstore.com, this is just one of the last ones. So this is the fiberglass replica. I absolutely love it. But what I want to kind of point out here, and I don't know how well it's going to be presented here in the camera, but my fog lights. When I was, how old was I? I think it was 18 or 19. I got in a fender bender and it kind of pushed the fog light in an undesirable area, and it caused the mount of it to not be perfectly straight. So I've made some subtle attempts to kind of correct it. Right now, I think it looks pretty good. Like I think the gap from lens down low is not where I want it to be. So when I take off the bumper next, I'm gonna spend some more time maybe possibly reforming the brackets, cut and weld, whatever. But it bugs me. You guys probably can't even notice it, but it bugs me. But anyway, the intercooler there is not your eBay knockoff cheap universal radiator. That is a Treadstone intercooler. That's it's a really nice intercooler. I think I paid $600 to $800 for that radiator. I can't remember, but a radiator and an intercooler, they both have those cores where either it's volume that passes through, whether it's air, for boost or coolant or for the radiator, and the job of it is to disperse the heat of whatever you're trying to cool or cool off through like a heat sink, right? You're trying to spread the load, spread the heat into other areas and expand it so it gets dissipated by, in this case, air as air passes through it. So not to knock those who buy eBay intercoolers or radiators, they do work. It's not a matter of whether they work or not. It's basically a question of how well they work. So while if you go buy a intercooler off eBay, it will definitely be better than not having an intercooler. But when you get into the high performance realm, like where I'm at with this car, I do think that you will see a difference when you're hitting that 41 pounds of boost like I am, and you might see an air intake temperature difference between a Chinese eBay brand versus like a real Japanese or whoever makes Treadstone intercoolers. There is a difference in quality. It may not be much, but there is. But anyway, it's not a knock about what you got going on. I'm just kind of stating a opinion / known fact. But anyway, so kind of hard to see at this angle because I got the car up so high, but I do have shrouding that boxes in the front intercooler here. Now, if you notice, I have the intercooler at that same 45-degree angle as the radiator. When I first did an intercooler, I did a front mount intercooler. I had the intercooler vertically, right? So straight up and down. The car overheated, and the reason why it overheated is because you have a intercooler that's faced like this, and then you have a radiator that's at a different angle like this, and all what was happening was like the intercooler was causing or creating a scenario where it's like air was not able to pass through at the same profile as the radiator from the factory design here. Now again, I've seen tons of people run what I just described as an intercooler being straight up and down, radiator being at 45 degrees, and it works, but for whatever reason it caused my car to overheat. So I've had this imprinted in my mind that you want to have the intercooler, the AC condenser, any oil coolers be parallel to your radiator for optimal air efficiency flow. And it's like, I'm not wrong, I know I'm right, because if you look at all OE manufacturers, like, I got my Chevy truck out in the parking lot or the driveway right now. If you go look at the intercooler, the radiator, and the condenser, and any oil coolers, it's all parallel, it's all sandwiched together, and that's how air moves through. So again, it just depends on how that efficiency statement is going to be applied towards that setup. So I'm not gonna be here to cause a debate. It's just, that's kind of facts, guys. So anyways, but what I have here is I have a shroud, a boxed in shroud that forces the air to come into the radiator area, and it forces it to only go in one direction, which is through the intercooler, and therefore it hits the radiator. There's no way that the air can pass the whole area and go around the radiator. You don't want that. So I got this sheet metal, it's galvanized. You know, is it galvanized? I think it's galvanized, but so it won't rust. Looks like I got a kind of a bolt there about to fall out. I got to fix that. But right here, as you can see, I have my 30 row universal. Again, this is like the whole eBay universal statement. This is just a G plus, kind of a well-known brand in the universal eBay world. Again, it kind of goes back to that statement, right? It's a cooler, it will function. How efficiently is debatable. But in this case, oil's passing through it at a pretty low volume rate, and so it's actually gonna perform quite well. I do have this fan that kicks on at a certain temperature threshold, and I actually noticed through data logging that it is providing value or results in how it's cooling. So functional, right? These are the lines going through. I can't remember which one's the inlet and outlet, but if I could change anything and how I have this set up, I would have the inlet and outlet on top, so oil comes down and comes back out versus from the bottom side doing this U pattern. It doesn't matter, it's all pressurized, but if you look here, I have some scrapes from, you know, hitting some bottoms there. But yeah, it's working well. Everything's going well. But anyways, so let's talk about what else is going on over here. So I don't know if I described this last time, but I do have the Tremec Magnum in the car, and I do have an oil cooler for the Magnum. And while, you know, the TR6060 and the Chevy Camaro platform, and I think other platforms as well, they do have an oil cooler from factory that cools the TR6060. But when you buy a Tremec Magnum, which again is the upgraded version of a TR6060, there won't be any really, there's not like a kit or like a clause or like a little asterisk that says, hey, you need to buy an oil cooler. It's just like, hey, if you have the money, if you have the smarts to buy a Magnum, you should understand like what goes into the performance transmission like that. So there is a bolt that you basically remove from the transmission, and you can put, you know, MPT or in this case I did AN fittings, and I have an oil cooler that runs right here. So this is just another oil cooler, and I did create a box shroud around it, so it's kind of hard to see in the video, but your hand, like you can look at my hand right here, there's a shroud here that captures the air as it goes through. And again, data logging, I have a data sensor, I'll show it to you in a minute, that I'm actually able to see the temperature as it goes in. And if you look right here at my intercooler piping, you can see how I have foam surrounding the piping to help insulate and control the boxing of the airflow. And then if you look right next to it, it looks to be kind of dirty now, so I need to get this cleaned up. It's just a basic K&N air filter. So I do have what you would call a legitimate cold air intake, as the air actually comes from out underneath the bumper. There's no heat soaking that's occurring. The only heat soak that you might see is in a parking lot scenario. If the parking lot is like, you know, roasting and you're idling, yeah, you're gonna get the surface temperature heat radiating off the pavement. But obviously as you're driving, you know, that cools off. So this is probably the best case scenario of having a cold air intake set up for a turbo car. And then obviously you get all these AN lines and whatnot. So got this old school aluminum shroud here. Looks like I got a little bit of a rock that kind of, or something that came loose right there. So I gotta get that pulled out. But yeah, moving down the line here, your typical polyurethane tension rod bushings. Then you can get a sneak peek of my little, I guess, the Cadillac CTS-V 6-pot Brembos. I'll talk about that here in a minute when I talk about my next upcoming project. And then these brackets, actually, I made these way back when, before anyone else did. So these are like the original CTS-V conversion brackets. I believe there's a couple people that bought them and was able to replicate them, and that's good. Like, I only made a one-time run of these. I think I sold like 30 sets, and that was it. And then coilovers there, you know, that's the Powertrix ultralights. I believe I was one of the first people to get the ultralights. I've had these 12, 14 years running now, and I haven't done a lick of any need to like rebuild them or anything. They're still just as good as the day I bought them. I do have the Swift springs though. I really wanted to take advantage of what was being offered by Charles there at Power Tricks. So, but anyways, yeah. So you can see that's obviously on both sides. So here's the oil pan. It's dirty. I drive the car, might get some splash up from the road. This oil pan is the Moroso twin turbo oil pan from the Z32. Now, again, for those who don't know, I have the twin turbo crank and oil pump setup in my VG33, and there's two big reasons of why I did that. The first reason is it's a forged crank from factory. The VG30E and the VG33 cranks are not forged from factory. They are cast cranks. Still pretty relatively strong cranks, but they are definitely cast. There's a certain horsepower threshold that you need to consider before you even hey, do I need a twin turbo forged crank? Honestly, guys, even at my power level of 838 to the wheels, technically you don't need a forged crank, but it's just one of those peace of mind things. I would say once you cross that threshold of approaching 600 plus horsepower, you might want to consider doing the twin turbo crank swap. Happy to supply information on how to do that. But the other reason, other than the forged aspect of the crank and its strong stability and rigidity, is the fact that you can utilize the twin turbo oil pump at that point. That oil pump, the throat of that oil pump, and I wish I can visually show you side by side, it's a massive pump. That solves any sort of concern for oil starvation and oil on demand. So anyway, and I guess there's a third reason I forgot to mention is that some might know that the twin turbo or the Z32 crank, the VG30DE crank, is an 8-bolt flywheel crank configuration. The VG30 and 33 single overhead cam, that's a 6-bolt setup. So you're kind of limited on what you can do in terms of clutch upgrades, or in this case, we'll get talking here in a minute on the transmission upgrades. But I wanted to have the ability to run anything that's made for the Z32 be adaptable to my VG33 setup. But I think some people have asked me in the past, and I'll just kind of talk about it right now, on the notation here of why you would want a larger capacity oil pan. I mean, if you look at this thing, guys, it is freaking huge. Normally the sump dimensions of the even the Z31 or Z32, the sump itself that holds your reservoir of oil is typically 6 inch by 6 inch by the height of 5 to 6 inches. So you got this brick container that holds their oil. Normal volume capacity is 4.5 to 5 quarts. So most people would just put 5 quarts and then you're good to go. But with my setup here, with the combination of the pan, right, this big ass oil filter, the AN lines, and this huge 30-row oil cooler, all together that holds 9 quarts of oil. And you're like, well, good grief, why do you need 9 quarts of oil? What are you doing with 9 quarts of oil? Why is that a benefit to the car and its performance? It's twofold, guys. Biggest 2 reasons. One, you have a huge supply of oil, and there's less chance of oil starvation or cavitation. Oil cavitation is where the oil is not coming down quick enough from the heads, and it creates this basically lack of supply or gap of oil flow. So the pickup tube inside the oil pan, as it's trying to draw in oil, it picks up an air bubble and it causes a starvation where you could spin a bearing. If you guys have ever drank soda or chocolate milk from a straw and you get down to the bottom and you hear that, you're sucking up air, that noise that's kids do and it's super annoying, that's technically starvation or cavitation. So you don't want that to occur. Obviously, the bigger the volume to have the oil be available for the pickup tube to suck from, that's preferred, right? But the other bigger reason, I think, or equally as big reason, is the cooling aspect or properties of having a bigger oil pan. Now, think about this. Try to think about this in a comparison viewpoint here. When you have your stove in your kitchen and you're trying to boil a pot of water, think about your normal 6-inch diameter pot of water, and it boils, right? And it boils at a certain temperature. Maybe got the boiler set on high. Let's say it takes, 5 minutes to boil that pot of water. Now, comparatively, and again, this is probably an exaggeration, take that same burner in your mind, take that same burner and put it under a kiddie's swimming pool, right? Now you're looking at a you know, like a 4-foot wide swimming pool. Obviously the scale here is not correct, but I'm trying to give you an impression of characteristics here. So if you get this 3 to 4 foot wide diameter kiddie swimming pool, and now you have the same size burner trying to boil that water in that kiddie pool, it's not going to happen, if at all. It might take like hours. So when you have a larger capacity oil pan, it's going to help promote a stabilized cooling environment for your oil. And it's going to take a lot more of beating on your car to get that oil temperature to rise to where then you start losing shear strength and stretching the viscosity of your oil thinner. And that's what can lead to bearing thinning. So again, the more volume you have, the cooler your oil will be, or be maintained. It's not necessarily a promise, but it's more obtainable and maintainable. So that's the biggest reason why you probably want to consider running a larger oil pan, is for cooling properties and oil cavitation / starvation. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're building your motor, as you're building your platform. Yes, oil supply and demand is critical for the engine's health and longevity. All right, so moving down the line here, we'll talk about this oil filter here in a minute, but let's go ahead and go straight to the transmission here. This is the Tremec Magnum, as I mentioned earlier. This is the 2.66 close ratio transmission. Again, this is a real 6-speed with a double overdrive gear setup. Now, again, I'm not here to start a controversy. I don't want to piss off people, but let me tell you guys, the CD009, the 350, 370Z transmission, like, I get it. It's a really popular transmission, guys, but it's not strong. It has terrible gear ratios. Think about this in perspective here, in comparison. The first, well, let me skip ahead, I guess. The sixth final gear on a 350Z transmission, the CD009, is the same as a Z32's fifth gear, right? So if you think about that, and it's a single overdrive transmission, that means your sixth gear on the CD transmission is your overdrive. So all I'm trying to say is in comparison, on a Z32 transmission, you get from let's say first gear to fifth gear at a certain rotation, like certain amount of time where you're rolling through your gears. On the CD transmission, you have to row an extra gear to accomplish the same feat. And it takes, if you're racing, if you're drag racing or autocross or whatever type of racing you're doing, you're wasting valuable time rowing an extra gear for no reason, right? You're just rolling through gears. Now, I'm not completely want to knock that transmission. That transmission serves a purpose in like drifting or autocross racing, where you want those close ratios. You want to be able to quickly wrap out an RPM and keep your RPMs high. That's where it serves a purpose. But for a boost building and highway monsters like I have here, and any sort of power, like high power application, like that's not a transmission I would ever recommend to anybody. I'm sure there's people that argue with me. I'm sure there's people argue with you, but I'm just telling you from experience. I have replaced a lot of CD transmissions in 350s and 370s, or whatever the JK transmission name they now give to those. It is what it is, guys. Facts are facts. But again, I'm not here to start a war over facts, but I'm just telling you from my experience and what I've learned. So anyways, Tremec Magnum 2.66 close ratio. This is the Z32 adaptation bell housing that is sold and manufactured and sold by Merlin machine. I think it's Merlin HPLR or HPLR. I can't remember. But that guy is smart as hell. He owns a machining shop. And anyway, so I bought this bell housing here. Inside the bell housing is a XCD Hyper Series builder clutch setup. It's a triple disc ceramic solid hub. Rated for a ridiculous amount of horsepower and torque. I think it's rated for like 1760 something foot-pounds of torque. And obviously I'm never gonna get there, but it's just knowing that I don't have to worry about, the clutch ever slipping. And then this is just your typical, Z32 starter. So all that is normal, I guess, for a lot of folks. Exhaust here is a QTP 3-inch cutout. Right now you can see that it's open. And what this does, this gives me the ability to make a lot of loud noises while driving. But with this closed, I guarantee I won't be able to hit that 838 wheel of horsepower. There's no way. There's no way. It's too restrictive. I do have a catalytic converter. And you're like, man, you have all that horsepower. Why do you have a cat? Well, a catalytic converter actually does more muffling and silencing of your exhaust than an actual muffler. So the reason why I wanted a cat is so that I can just have a quiet cruising car if I wanted to. And you know, it's just personal preference, personal choice. You don't have to have a cat, but with the cutout, I can go from like quote unquote performance mode, sport mode or whatever, close it and go to cruiser mode where you can have a conversation in the car with whoever you're riding with, you know, your wife or whatever. So, and I you know, my wife, she loves it. Like the ability to close the exhaust and just enjoy the car, enjoy some music, have a conversation. So anyway, just kind of food for thought. This is a power building for sure. This makes your turbo spool up so much faster. So moving down the line here, and again, when I made an earlier comment about what to do and what not to do as you have a car, like again, this is my first car. I've had this when I was 16. I made some terrible mistakes owning this car and working on this car. Let's talk about the first mistakes I've made. Look at this dog shit of a mess with cable management. Yeah, it sucks. And one of these days, I'm gonna tear all this down and redo it. It looks like poo-doo, as my kids would say. The frame rails are a hot mess right next to it. I can't take full credit for destroying these. A lot of the frame rail damage was how I got the car way back when. So it is what it is. Eventually, I'm gonna get the frame rail caps and weld them on. Yeah, it's gonna add some weight to the car, but it's important to have good straight frame rails. It's embarrassing to even show you this right now, guys, but I'm proud to say, or admitting to say, I'm okay saying, I've had this car since I was 16. Some of this shit's my mistake, and I'm okay talking about it. It's part of a learning curve. And again, like I don't work on cars for a living. I'm not like a professional car builder. As you can see, you know, nothing's perfect. I work in IT. You know, what I learn is through watching YouTube videos or watching others, or in this case, trial and error, right? So I'm okay showing this, but I'm also okay saying, don't do the same mistakes that I have in this hot mess. Like it's ridiculous. So anyways, moving along. The transmission mount is just a box steel mount I made utilizing your typical GM polyurethane transmission mount. I hope you can see that well. The drive shaft there is a drive shaft made from a local shop in Colorado. I'm actually going to pull it out and send it out to shaft masters. I have a huge beef with this problem, or with this shaft. There's a problem with it, and let me explain why. So the input, the slip yoke, is a Sonax or Sunex, however you pronounce it, forged slip yoke that uses a Spicer 1350 series U-joint. And that's cool, that's good. But going down to this drive shaft, which is, by the way, a 3.5 inch 120 thou walled shaft. This companion flange for my 370 Nismo GT Pro, this is like a homegrown, homemade companion flange. I didn't make it, but the shop did. And the reason why I'm talking smack about it is because I believe that some of the vibrations I'm getting in the car while driving is from this companion flange. And I don't think it's balanced. I don't think it is. So I do have a different companion flange I'm gonna put in the diff, which is this 6-bolt companion flange that comes on the new Z or some Infinities. And then I have another Sonax companion flange that again uses a 1350 series U-joint. This is a 1350 U-joint, and that's why I wanted this homemade. 1350 U-joint, I think it can support like 2200 horsepower, and then the 1310s can support like, I think it's like 1200. Again, I'm not there, but I don't want to worry about any what-if scenarios, right? But as I think I talked about in another video, when I rebuilt the differential for the wide body, I was finally able to find another one for my Z here. And this is that Euro / Saudi Arabia finned R205 housing here. And I just think it's so badass having all these fins for cooling. It's functional. I mean, think about it. Like I have the Nismo GT Pro, which is 20 clutches total, 10 on each side of the spider gears. The amount of friction that this differential regularly sees can generate temperatures so quickly. And if you look over here, I have a temperature sensor right there. Again, I hope you can see it. This kicks on when the temperature hits 185 degrees, or 180, 185, I can't remember. And it kicks on pretty quickly after like 30, 45, maybe an hour of driving. So that's like a high amount of temperature for a splash, what's it called, splash reservoir type oil supply here. And then, you know, all differentials are called splash, which is where, you know, the differential is spinning at your ring gear and it's just picking up oil and flinging it internally. But anyways, so just kind of kind of food for thought there. If you ever get a Nismo GT Pro, you gotta consider about cooling. So cool to have this Saudi Arabia style diff housing there, super cool. But as you can tell, I have an AN, a -10 AN hose there that feeds to an oil cooler, just like the wide body. So there's the oil cooler. Hope you guys can see it. And it kicks on thermostatically at 180 degrees. And there's the pump right there. Same pump as the other one, a little bit dirty there. It's a Tilton diff pump. I'm sorry, diff pump, correct. Talking more about the subframe setup, as I mentioned, that's the Nismo GT Pro. This is just a really thick sway bar there. It's a Godspeed 31 millimeter. I'm actually probably gonna swap it out for another one because I had to shave some material, you know, if you can see, to get this companion flange to, you know, clear there. So once I get the other companion flange for the diff and the drive shaft, it'll actually put the flange and bolt configuration like right about here. So I'm gonna get another one of these. But yeah, this is the S13 Godspeed, you know, 31 millimeter. It prevents a lot of either understeer or oversteer. I can't remember which one it does. And you can notice it, like when I replaced it, I immediately felt the difference. But again, this is exactly the same setup on the wide body. Twin turbo axles, Q45 axle on the other side. It's the thickest, beefiest axle set that Nissan made. It's beefier than the 370Z. I'm assuming it's beefier than the new Z. I haven't really dove deep in that yet. I'm just assuming it is. And then the rear brakes are the you know, the CTSV or SRT8 Brimbos, the 4 pods. They're all the same. But yeah, guys, I mean, everything is, it's kind of the way it is. It's been this way for a while, and it's a very solid setup. I can't imagine anything else changing on this rear setup. Kind of kicking myself, kind of second guessing myself on the gear ratio for the final drive here. This is the 3.54 out of a 350Z, but I'm wondering if I should have gone to the 3.69. But I was talking to my buddy John Martin, and he said, he's like, you probably won't even notice it if you went to 3.69. It's probably not noticeable at your power level. And I probably would agree with him on that. I don't think it is. But anyways, one thing I failed to mention just a minute ago was my muffler there. As you can tell, it's a 3M. Well, it was sold by 3M back then, but that's a 3-inch MagnaFlow exhaust. I forget what series. I think it's the, I can't remember what series. I wouldn't be able to quote it correctly if I tried to guess. But one of the things I did recently, actually, last time I had the car up on the lift, was I redid all the exhaust. You know, did a really clean job having the exhaust run through 3-inch to a nice little 45 here to another 45. This was the actual existing pipe from the muffler. I just went ahead and reused it. And obviously this is some, you know, polished stainless steel. But otherwise, guys, it's a really solid setup. No rattles, no creaks, you know, everything is solid on the car. Nothing really other to talk about in terms of what's under the car. But let's go ahead and get the oil drained and show you how much comes out. And what you're gonna see right away, by the way, is the color of the oil as I pour it out. And you're gonna make, holy smokes, when was the last time you changed your oil? Well, let me just tell you right now, full disclosure, when you have 2200 cc injectors, huge injectors, unfortunately, if your tune is not like dead perfect, and it never will be on my car, I'll do the best I can. You're gonna get this, you know, wash effect from the fuel, unused fuel going down to oil, and it contaminates your oil and turns it black. And that's why I have to change the oil more than I would like to. And I'll talk about how much oil I use and what brand I use, but it's expensive oil. It's not cheap. So let's go ahead and get my oil drain, whatever you want to call this thing. I think it's called oil drain. So I think the last time I used it was, I changed my my riding lawnmower's oil. It's a tiny little filter. All right, so get this dirty guy over here. And again, guys, I know in my other videos I kind of talk a lot, and I'm a talker. I could do one of those videos where you have some jazzy music to listen to, techno music, and it just fast forwards, but I like to be methodical. I like to talk through things in hopes that you guys might pick up something that other people may not talk through. as you're working on cars. So if I talk a lot and if I annoys you, just mute or skip. You know, you have the ability on YouTube to fast forward, so take advantage of that. The drain plug there, I hope you can see it. That's actually the Nismo drain plug. Looks like it's got a bit of an oxidation now. It used to say Nismo on there until I cleaned it, and the Nismo lettering came right off, which is kind of upsetting. But it has a neodymium magnet, whatever it's called, and it picks up more gunk than a traditional magnet does. So I think it's a 17 millimeter, so let's go ahead and get that. But I'll show you the magnet on that thing. It's pretty nice. So I think it's a 17 or actually a 19. I think it's a 19 actually. We'll find out. I'm not gonna wear gloves. I think I'm like fully expect to get my hands dirty. So can you guys see okay? Let me know in the comments below if I need to be better about adjusting for visibility. So let me lower it down for a quick sec. So I'm just gonna do the whole knock effect. There we go. Raise it back up. And before I fully drain it, let me get some paper towels. Never a bad thing for some paper towels. All right, so hopefully you guys can see. Maybe you can see. Roll my sleeve up a little bit. It's an oil change, guys. This is like revolutionary. But I just kind of want to show you what I got going on. You probably can't see right now. That's okay. Let me just get it going and I'll lower it down. All right. So we'll lower it down now. So let's check that oil. So if the question is like, you know, when was the last time I changed the oil? When was the last time I changed the oil? I'm trying to remember. It's probably been a year. I don't drive this car a lot, so the oil gets older than it does get, you know, used. But it's black, as you can see. It has a lot of fuel in there. And again, if you run big injectors, if any of you are tuners, this is normal for you to see this, right? This is not old oil. But if you take a look at this, let me clean it real quick. This is man, it got oxidized. It's kind of disappointing. This is like a $30 drain plug. It looks like garbage. But let's wipe it off, get the threads cleaned. There's a little bit of metal on there, but that's kind of normal. I mean, nothing crazy amount, just sludge. But this magnet is like super duper strong. Can you guys see that? I mean, it's like a super strong magnet. So any drain plug for S13, Z32, 350, 370, it's all the same threads. The threads are M12 by 125. So any drain plug fitted for that will fit this car. So oil's draining there. It's draining kind of slowly because it's really cold out here in the shop. So the viscosity is pretty thick as it's cold. So we'll let it sit there, drain for a little bit, and put my drain plug there on the metal. And you can look at this rag. Look how black that is. That's just what oil and fuel contamination looks like. It is what it is in this case. But so let's get this oil filter removed. And this is a really nice oil filter. It's K&P, not K&N, K&P. They're actually based out of Colorado, which is pretty cool. I went to their facility where they make these, and they have a certification for aircraft certification, whatever exact certification that naming is. So it's a really nice reusable filter. You don't have to buy new filters once you get this filter. Unfortunately, it's kind of expensive. I think the filter was, like 300 bucks, maybe 350, I can't remember. But if you look at your ROI, your return of investment, you know, a good filter for an application like this, it's gonna cost you around, I don't know, a good filter is like 10 to 15 bucks. So depending on how many oil filters you do, or how many changes you do in a given amount of years or whatever duration, do the math. and then take into consideration, factor in the oil filtration value, right? So meaning the quality of oil filtration. This has a stainless steel mesh screen, guaranteeing it's going to do better filtration than a freaking paper filter like a Fram, which, by the way, do not run a Fram filter. I will come find you and I will beat you upside your head if I find out you're running a Fram filter. Those are a hot mess. They're just garbage. Like they're like used recycled cardboard almost, you know, it's just garbage. So anyway, let's have you guys check this out. When you buy this filter, it comes with this filter wrench setup, which is super cool. And you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. Why is your filter sitting like that? I thought the VG filter on the Z31, or Xterra even, I guess not Xterra because you guys are used to the front pump, but why is it sitting straight up and down? Well, let me show you how I did that. And again, that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. And you know, I don't usually wear gloves when I change oil, because the gloves I have are those, I get them at Home Depot. They're the nitrile dipped cotton gloves. I love using those gloves when I'm working on cars, but I don't like using those gloves when I change oil because they soak the cotton. Some of you guys are like, well, why don't you go buy some of those latex gloves? You're right, I should, because this is terrible. But the few times I get my hands dirty like this, it really doesn't bother me. That's why we have hand cleaner. And plus it makes my skin nice and soft. Kidding. This stuff causes cancer. So we're gonna let it soak there, or not soak, but drain a little bit longer. While it's doing that, before I want to show you the adapters I have and brackets for the oil filter relocation, let me get this brake parts cleaner and start the process of cleaning the filter. We'll just go ahead and I hope you guys can see. I apologize. Let me lower down the bowl here. All right. So sorry if you couldn't see earlier. I can't really see what you see, but we'll go ahead and get that soaking. And right now, if you can tell, like noticed, is that the oil is not like beating off this used oil, because it's actually still nice oil. It's not like, it's not, you know, thinned out oil. It's still relatively thick in viscosity. It's just contaminated with fuel. So if it was worn out, thinned oil, when you spray with brake parts cleaner, it would roll out really quickly, like that. But you know, obviously I let it soak there for a minute. So now it is, right? So let's just get that going there. And by the way, perfectly fine to have brake parts cleaner mixed with oil, because it's all petroleum based. And the aerosol contents of brake parts cleaner will evaporate, and then the petroleum based aspects of brake parts cleaner will then just mix with the oil, and it's completely recyclable. All right, that's good enough for now. I can wipe off the rest. So one thing I don't like about this oil pan is just the drain plug location. So if you look, the drain plug is like parallel to the base of the oil pan there. And you know, that's normal for a lot of oil pans. And there's not much I can do about that. It'd be cool to have the oil pan or the oil drain be like on the bottom, but then you risk things hitting it if you're driving, and you don't want that scenario. But the reason why this bugs me is just how long it takes for the oil to fully drain out. If you get your oil changed at Jiffy Lube, they won't wait for that to drain out. They'll just like, okay, it's low enough, and they just let it roll like that, and they fill it up. But I'm just gonna let it drain for probably a couple more minutes, if you will. And this is the oil we're gonna put in, but let's talk about that here in a minute. Let me see if we got a good bright light. I think that's not bright enough. Let's see if we have another one with better battery juice. I think all these batteries are charged, actually. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so what I want to show you, and again, excuse some of the hokey, quick adaptation of getting things done, and I'm gonna have to hold the GoPro. So what you're seeing right there is a relocation of the oil filter there. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but this is a high quality relocation adapter here. And again, it's kind of hard to see, but the port as oil comes out is radiused and curved, and so no shearing occurs as the oil is passed through. And that's important because shearing causes cavitation in some aspects. And if you look right there, kind of beyond the oil filter mount, that is a Z32 relocation kit. And it happens to be exactly the same bolt pattern setup. You see the 4 bolts there? This is made by BDE. I think they still make these today. Now the VG33 and some of the late VG30s from the Z31, like the W series, you will see that they have the 4 bolt hole configuration for the oil filter bracketry there. Now the early VG30s will only have 2 bolts. This still will bolt up to that. I just don't have full confidence that it's a tight feel or seal, right? A tight setup. So on a VG33, it's exactly the same 4 bolt configuration as Z32. So this bolted straight up. For sealing, it's all O-rings. There's no gaskets, unless you consider an O-ring a gasket. If you look right up there, kind of hard to see, the threads are an orb thread. It's not MPT, it's orb. So orb is basically an O-ring AN fitting. So I have -10 orb feeding -10 lines, and then it goes, you know, out to the oil cooler and returns accordingly. So this is, like, in my opinion, the best of the best right here. Like, I think a Mishimoto makes a good one with a thermostatic controller, and that's great. I don't have a thermostatic controller set up on this car. I don't really see the need. VG30, 33, any of the VG series, the temperature gets hot pretty quick. I don't see a point in already starting the cooling process, even when the motor oil is cool as it is. So take that for what you will. Take it with a grain of salt if it bugs you. But check out this BDE stuff, guys. That's awesome. And that allows me to relocate the oil filter wherever. Now, I was like, where can I put the oil filter? And you can tell it's pretty tight under the car. I don't know where else I could have put it, in short of putting it like under the front bumper, which coincidentally, actually I did that in the wide body, but I use a different oil filter relocation kit there. But I figured it was okay putting it right here, and it is. It's just some tight AN line fitment, but it works. But yeah, I mean, so if you guys want to do that, you know, look at the BDE Z32 oil filter relocation bracket or adapter, and that's what that is. You have to buy the AN fittings separately to adapt it to ANs. I think normally it's going to come with MPT, I think, or maybe even not anything at all. So I can't remember. I've had it for like 5-6 years. But yeah, guys, I mean, this is my oil setup. So if you have any questions regarding this or any comments, if you want to talk smack about how some of this stuff looks ghetto, do it. Talk smack, put it in the comments below. Let me know what I could have done better. But overall, it works really well, guys, and there's no leaks, which is amazing. So we're gonna kind of let that drain here, and let's kind of switch focus to the oil filter itself. Let me go get that green oil drain pan, and so that way I can show you how to take this thing apart and how to clean it. So let me walk over there and grab it. That way you guys can see it without me holding a flashlight. All right. And yes, I take the oil filters to be recycled accordingly. I just don't toss them away. But I kind of do want to get the oil filter out of there from the lawnmower. And so what I'll do for now, let me just place it on this rag, on this paper towel. So it's just out of the way. Okay, we're gonna do it over here. All right, so get the filter. All right, let me get the, it's still kind of excessively wet. So I'm just gonna put it in here. Okay, let me raise the oil drain, because when it's making that noise, it's actually splatting. And I don't want to have any splats on the cement below. So we'll let it do that. All right, so this is, like I said earlier, this is the K&P 13 or 3/4-16 thread oil filter. This thing is massive. It almost holds a quart of oil itself. This thing is massive. And as you can tell, I got some dirty oil in there. So you don't want to put it in back in the car when it's so filthy. So part of the whole changing oil process for both of my wide body, because it has the same filter the wide body does, part of the process is making sure that you clean everything up accordingly. So it comes with this adapter. I don't know if we want to call this adapter plate, but I'm going to call this like a seat plate for seating against the filter mount. So there's a double ridge O-ring. They come with O-rings, and they are reusable. They come with spares in case you rip and tear it. Unfortunately, on this, I think it was the wide body, I can't remember if it was the wide body or this car, there was a burr in the metal, and whenever I would tighten it, yes, it would seal, but when I untightened and removed it, the burr would rip the O-ring. So I went through O-rings for a little while before I caught the burr and was able to, clean it up. So you remove the seat for the seal there, and then what you do in here, I'm going to clean this up just right here so you can see where the O-ring is normally, or so you can have visibility. So there's another O-ring right here. So there's two O-rings, big double ridge, small double ridge. So if you look, you got these locking tabs into these grooves. So what you do is you push down, twist left, and then you pull out the media. And I mean, that's black, and this is an aluminum. So we got to clean that bad boy out. So here's the filter media right here. The pressure spring pops out like that. So you set that aside, and then this is your actual filtration media. Now again, this is stainless steel media. It's definitely cleanable, and you have to get it clean. If you look right there, let me get it there with a paper towel. There is a magnet right there, and I'm really happy to see that there was hardly anything stuck to it. Yes, I just wiped it off, but I can tell you there was nothing there. So that tells me that the there's not much bearing degradation going on. So we're gonna get this wiped off a bit before we start using brake parts cleaner. This is probably the biggest thing I don't like about changing the oil on the wide body and the Z. Set aside the cost behind it, but you have to get this cleaned. I think I typically go through at least 2 cans of brake parts cleaner, if not more. So just kind of it is what it is. If you can see here, I stock up on brake parts cleaner. So I'm going to start off with the can I put over there, finish off that can. I actually got one right there I need to finish off, but we'll go ahead and I guess get started on wasting brake parts cleaner. So initially you just kind of want to spray it to get the brake parts cleaner to start breaking down the oil. This can's empty. Set that aside. So you want to spray it down to have the brake parts cleaner start breaking down. If you change your oil like this on the setup shortly after driving, the oil will be thinner and actually will cooperate a little bit better. So, but obviously, you don't want to burn your hands doing that. So, it's one of those, how do you change your oil? What temperature? If you can already see, the filter is actually starting to look a little bit cleaner just by doing this gentle spray. And again, I'm just trying to break down some of the sticky fuel contaminated oil. Like, I'm spraying, guys, and look, like hardly anything's coming off. It is so sticky. Alright, starting to look better. And then while that's soaking, let's get this in there as well. All right. So I'm gonna let this soak for a bit, just for a hot minute. I need to go replace the battery on the GoPro. It looks like it's at 17%. And like I said earlier, I'm a talker. I talk through this. But that's okay if you're okay with it. So let me go change out the battery, and by the time I come back, the brake parts cleaner would have done its thinning out job. So hold on one quick minute, I'll be right back. All right, we're back. I've got a full battery and brought out my spares so I don't have to run back in the house. Kind of an oversight there. All right, so things have been soaking here for about 5 minutes. Just touching it, and the oil is now very thinned out, which is good. So let's just continue cleaning. Try to get that old gunk out of there. I don't see much sludge, which is good. And see, like, look how nicely it's coming out now. That's good. That's what you want to see. Let's check how this guy's doing. Can you see that? Not so much. Whew, it is nasty in there. All right, well, go ahead and start doing some higher spraying. I'm wondering if I should get my little detail brush. Might make this go by a little quicker. The challenge is the oil is not really warm. It's kind of cold out here in the shop. So we're gonna kind of be fighting some thick oil viscosity. But we're getting there. So while I'm doing this, let's talk about oil change. Like, how often do I do it, the intervals. You know, normally the car, the VG30 in a factory, like 1980s situation, the owner's manual will say you need to replace the oil every, like, you know, 3,000 or 3,000 miles or whatever it is, or I don't know if it's, yeah, every 3,000, 6,000 miles with conventional oil, or every 3 months, whichever happens first. And that's with conventional oil. Oil has changed so much over the years, and I'm not really an engineer. I don't know much about that stuff. I only know what my machinist has told me and what to buy. But I can tell you that the ratings and the what's in oil has changed a lot over the years. Now, if you were to ask me, well, what oil should I put in my car and how often should I change the oil? That greatly depends on what you're doing with the car. If you're tracking it, if it's a high horsepower monster like mine, or if it's a daily cruiser, if it's a daily driver or a weekend warrior, it really depends. On a stock Z, like back when I had my Shiro, my 50th, I would put fully synthetic, you know, just 10W30 fully synthetic Castrol oil in there, and I would change it not by mileage because I never drove those cars, but I would change it like every 6 months, and that was fine. On my situation with my oil, again, I do probably change mine every 6 months, but it's more so because of the contamination. Now, if you didn't have the contamination problems that I have here, I would say you know, you could probably stretch it to 5,000 miles comfortably. I wouldn't go past 5,000 miles. I know oil has changed a lot, but I still have that idea that changing your oil frequently is a small insurance policy to help against oil thinning, so you don't want to ruin your bearings. That's just my thought process here. You know, I'm not an expert in that world, but this is just what my machinist has told me to do and what I like to do with my builds. And I actually had that same, you know, thought process on my truck, my wife's car, even my Turbo Xterra. I change the oil often because, not ridiculously often, but enough to where I think I'll get my dollar's amount out of the oil, and that I feel that the oil is not breaking down to a point of concern. I'm probably losing some money in that respects, where, you know, I'm still throwing away possibly some good mileage out of an oil, but I'm okay taking that assumption where, you know, I'm throwing money away for good oil. It's just, it's a perceived notion, right, of how much you think you're losing money wise on oil. But I'm going to drain this now very getting full here of oil / brake parts cleaner. Let me dump this out, because now we're going to get the toothbrush, detail brush, and start scrubbing the media. Oh, I was almost going to pour that down the garbage can. Let me set this aside. Looks like the oil pan is done draining, which is great. Let me take that out. It's done draining. A couple drips. And like I said, I clean this. Now, I'm just going to temporarily put this in there. I do have a new crush gasket for it, but I'm just going to put here in it just to stop the drip. I'll come back here in a minute and put a new crush gasket. But let me drain this real quick. Normally I clean the filter in here. Matter of fact, I might as well now, since I got that removed. But you know what? No, I'm going to keep it there because the oil filter still may drip. All right, let me wipe my hands. It's a dirty job. And again, I go through paper towels quite a bit. All right. So in my toolbox, it's kind of falling apart. I have various brushes. I'm just looking for my black brush. There we go. This one will work. Basically an aggressive toothbrush. So let me clean it. Okay. All right, so at this point, get it wet, get it kind of coated. Clean that media screen. That, I think it's called pleats, right? Pleated. You just kind of want to scrub it down. Let's give it a good quick rinse. Looking pretty good. You know, the more time you spend on cleaning, the better the results, and you know, it's doing its job. I always tell people, slow, methodical, work it through, talk yourself through it. You know, people might think it's weird that you're talking to yourself. Like right now, I feel like I'm talking to myself. I know that you guys can hear me once I upload this to YouTube, but it just kind of feels weird. I'm talking to myself. I wonder what the cats might think outside. Oh, Master is talking to himself again. But anyway, there's no race as you're doing things like this, guys. You're not trying to rush anything unless you got to be somewhere, which if you got to be somewhere, this is definitely not the right type of oil change time allocation that you should be doing right now. but you got to be thorough with what you're doing. All right, I think I got the scrubbing done, and what that just basically did is agitated, you know, and helped stir up the thicker, stickier oil, and we're trying to rinse and purge it now. Like I said, you go through brake parts cleaner. You know, if I had a hot tank, this would be awesome. If I had the ability to put this in a hot tank and just let it do its darn thing. Maybe one of these days I'll get a hot tank, you know, and just let it soak and just come back. But right now, I guess that's not happening. I don't wonder how many people watching this right now who have access to a hot tank are screaming through the screen, "What the hell are you doing?" Well, I don't have a hot tank. I don't have a parts cleaner. I have brake parts cleaner and a brush. It is what it is. Let it go. Don't hate me. All right, I think I'm at a good point where I don't think it's going to get much cleaner than it already is. And by the way, if it looks like I'm burning through brake parts cleaner, I am, but this is the Walmart stuff. It doesn't last long comparing to like the name brand CRC stuff. It doesn't, for whatever reason, there's like not as much content. So don't get mad at me. All right, so let's just clean off literally as much as we can. And we'll just kind of wipe off every corner. I'm gonna get hand cancer, skin cancer from all this exposure to chemicals. But you know what, guys? Yeah, everything causes cancer these days. I went to the store today. I was at Walmart, and I was picking up Mike's Hard Lemonade. I like that stuff. And this lady passed me in the aisle. She says, "That stuff will kill you." I said, "Yeah, pretty much like everything else will." I don't know why she thought she had to tell me that. I don't know if she was trying to be like a Karen or something. I don't know. She looked at me weird. I'm like, you know, I told her, I said, you know, oxygen is what kills you. We need it to survive, but it's also the #1 reason why you die. Oxygen. And it's primarily the #1 reason why we age and get old is because of oxygen. Our skin cells start breaking down because of oxygen. No, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a scientist, but if you ever took science back in high school, oxygen is actually what keeps you alive and also what kills you. With that said, the reason why I'm telling you this, I'm trying to like make it sound like it's okay that I'm getting covered in brake parts cleaner and oil. Being hypocritical, I guess, but I don't really care. You get exposed to so many things just going outside your house. Look at that. Just one of those things. So I think right now I'm not making much progress on getting this clean, and it's because it's so cold in the shop. It's like, I don't know, I think it's like 35 degrees right now. I'm telling you, if it was the summer, we'd be done with the oil filter cleaning. I'm gonna take a break on the video quick. My next step, which I really don't want to do because it's gonna get all over me, I don't want to record it. But what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna do another spray of brake parts cleaner. I'm gonna get the garden hose, hopefully it's not frozen, and then spraying water will actually help, high pressure water will actually help really, you know, blast everything out. That's the element that I'm not doing right now. I was hoping that I could get by without doing it, but I'm not making much progress. I actually, the instructions, if you read the instructions for K&P filters, they do say to do exactly what I'm doing, by the way. I'm not just doing this because I think I know what I'm doing. These are the instructions they tell you to do. And they also, at the end of the instructions, say for, you know, optimal, you know, cleaning practice or whatever, when you're done with brake parts cleaner or your degreaser, spray it with a garden hose and flush it out. But that's what I need to do next. So I'm gonna take a quick break on the video. I'm gonna pause it, and then I'm gonna go do that. And when I come back, you'll see how much better it is. And the reason why I don't want to record it because the water's just gonna get everywhere on the camera. So I'll be back here in a moment. You'll see here how clean it will be. Stay tuned. All right, we're back. So check that out. The hose was like the secret of secrets. Actually, I had a wash sink in the house, a utility sink, and it was honestly just hot water. After the brake parts cleaner had broke it down, the hot water just like, it just cleaned everything up super well. So pretty cool. So there is little beads of water in there, and again, it's in the instructions. If you buy this filter, that once you rinse it with water, you get brake parts cleaner again, and the brake parts cleaner will wick away the water. So then now you're left with brake parts cleaner. You don't want that, and that's when you use compressed air to do that. So we're just going to put this aside because we're not done yet, but we're just going to put it over there for now. So I need to clean these. They're the last 2 or 3 components over here. I don't need to take this to the utility sink. This is just more of a wipe down. The media screen was definitely the hardest aspect about cleaning this. It's just there's so much stuff that can be stuck on those screens. The screens are, you know, think about it, it's a pretty porous screen. There's a lot of anchor points for things to hold on to. So how I clean that out, I get some paper towels like this, stick it in there, get your brake parts cleaner, get the paper towel pretty soaked, and then I get my old screwdrivers. This is like my junk drawer of screwdrivers. Let's use this guy. And I just use this to kind of get in there, like bottle brush it, if you will. If you had a bottle brush, I bet that would work great. Maybe next time I'm at Wally World, I'll pick one up for just cleaning filters. But this works pretty well. So check this out. Let's dump this out. See, pretty good. Not bad. Let's do another round. I think 2 or 3 of these rounds will be good enough. You can already see it. It's diluting a little bit. Okay. You guys remember when paper towels used to be like color? Like, was it like a late 90s thing where paper towels had like printed floral patterns or ducks or whatever? I have yet to see that any place, you know. It's like, it's been a while. It was like something when I was a kid. And also when like toilet paper had color print on it, like floral patterns and whatnot. It's just different time, man. We were able to print color on our paper that wiped our hands and wiped our butts. That's just crazy to think about our society that we're able to do that. But anyways, so let's see how we're doing here. That's looking pretty good. Let's do one more pass. I think I can probably save this paper towel just by folding it inside out. Put it in there. Let's try to wipe off everything that you can see. There's a little edge or a lip behind where everything locks in. You kind of want to get all that sludge. All right. It's looking pretty good. You got big hands. It's hard to get my hands in there and clean it out. Yeah, I'm calling that done. It looks pretty good if you ask me. Get that O-ring cleaned because they are reusable. So you clean the O-ring at this point and you want to inspect it to see if there's any tears. Visually, no. And then when you run your finger across, you'll be able to pick up any burrs or tears, and there are none, so that's good. But yeah, this there's a little lip right there. Let me clean that. But it looks like the canister itself, it looks like it's ready to go after I just do this last little wipe down. Some right there. All right, so we're good. This is ready to go. That one's done. Let's put that right there. And then this guy just needs a quick wipe down. Thankfully, it's not too much material. Just give it a good old wipe down. Okay. Almost there. Really no point in just saturating it with a spray since it's so small. You can just kind of use a soaked rag or paper towel like this and clean it. Am I over critical on this? Am I a little OCD on cleaning this? Probably. It's one of those things like while you're here, you might as well do a good job because you don't want to take shortcuts. Okay, so one last quick wipe of the edge. And I think I just put some crud back on there. All right, so yeah, this is good. Nice and clean. So let's put that on the bench. I think the bench is wiped down. It is. All right, last but not least is the spring. I kind of did an initial wipe of it. So let's just clean it off one more time. Finalize it, I guess. And this is the pressure spring for the check valve at the base of the media. I can show you that here in a minute. You need this. If you don't have this, you're not going to build pressure in your oil filter, and you're not going to have any filtration. Okay, so that's clean. All right, so we're ready to go. We're ready to put the filter back together. But before we do, we need to spray this with brake parts cleaner. I can still see water in here. Yeah, let's do that real quick. And then we'll do that. Oh, and hey, look, check this out. I was able to finalize getting a hose reel, an electric reel. It's been a while. I've had these forever sitting in the corner of the shop. I finally ran a PEX line over there. Now, you can run PEX line like you would get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's fine. They won't last forever. They are rated for 300 PSI. That's for volume of fluid or, you know, maybe a gas. But for, I'll take that lightly. I don't know much about like gas, but this particular PEX line has the aluminum sleeve that runs in there. So this is actually rated for air. So I did 1 inch inner diameter PEX all the way through. I would use it over there just now, except I had to go over here and turn it on. I might as well just do what I need to do right here, right now. So anyways, so we'll go ahead and turn the compressor on. So this is my release air pressure valve. Close it. Open up the regulator feed. Cool. All right. Convenient that it turns on just now. So let me pull the compressor over here. All right. So, sorry about that. So like I said, what you want to do is get the brake parts cleaner. Get the brake parts cleaner to wick away the water. Okay, do the inside as well. actually blow it out. Sorry, that was super loud. And we're good. I don't see any pooling of any brake parts cleaner or water. No more beads. Have you guys take a look? It looks good to me. So yeah, so while we're here, take a look. That media screen is, man, I forget the micron, but it's super, super dense. And it actually flows. It has a higher rate of flow than your typical oil filter. So while the screen media is a tighter density, meaning better filtration, it actually has a better flow rate than a normal conventional oil filter. So it's like, you're not sacrificing anything other than just the cost of buying this up front. Again, this thing's like 300 bucks. But check this out just for funsies. Yeah, that's a pile of brake parts cleaner. But if you, it'll evaporate. All right, so we're gonna leave that right there. It's kind of loud with the air compressor. Okay, so what I was mentioning a minute ago is that pressure, the check valve spring there for that check valve. So there's a spring inside, sorry, you can't see. There's a spring inside there that regulates oil pressure. So if there's any excessive build of pressure, this will allow a bypass of oil flow. So if you can, I don't know if you can see in the video, but I can push that ball spring there, that check valve. And this is what helps contain the balancing of that pressure load. So it sits right there, it seats in there. It's all clean in there. Reverse installation, so you push down, lock it, so now it won't fall out. So it's in there. And then this just simply seats like that. There's no lock to it. You have an O-ring that seals against the surface of the what am I calling this? The surface seal bracket or adapter. I don't know what you want to call it. But just like you would with a new filter from, you know, the parts store, you want to lube this up with new oil on both sides before you go gorilla hands. But there's one other thing. You want to pre-fill this. That's a huge volume that you don't want to have the pump fill up first, because if your oil pump in your car has to fill this up, that means the time it takes to fill this up is lost time or volume of oil circulation that the rest of the motor is not seeing. So let's go ahead and talk about the oil now that we're here at this point and get it filled up. So we're just going to put this right here for now and go ahead and crack this box open. So this is empty. This is empty. All right. Okay, so let's talk about oil. Now, I am that type of guy that will spend a pretty penny on good quality oil, because at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. Now, some people say, oh, just run Utila T6 oil. It's fully synthetic. It's designed for turbos. And you're absolutely right. It's a decent oil you can get from Walmart. But I would beg to differ on the quality of oil, comparing it to like Driven XP racing oil here. And I have a couple talking points. Again, I'm not an engineer for oil. I'm not an expert, but I'm going to try to repeat what my machinist, my engine builder, told me about this oil here. So, Driven XP racing oil, or I guess XP6 by Driven. I think they have a different name that they changed. It's like Joe something or other, I can't remember. But the reason why I'm sold on this oil is for a couple of reasons. So first off, Driven series oil will have high zinc the ZDDB whatever additive built into it. So our VG motors are a what's it called, rolling tappet design, lifter tappet design. And back in the day, when in the 80s or even the 70s and 60s, like zinc was regularly added to oil from oil manufacturers to help against anti-wear. It's an anti-wear property or additive property that would help against metal deteriorating against just wear and tear. Now, because of the concerns of emissions and all that, they've had to reduce a lot of zinc additives in oil that you would buy from part stores or Walmart or wherever you get your normal oil. So for you VG guys out there, if you don't know, you really should be running oil that's high in zinc, because that's what the engine actually calls for. There's a couple ways you can get zinc. You can get oil like this. It has a lot of a content built into it, or you can go to the part stores and get the zinc additive bottles. I've never ran the zinc additive bottles, or maybe I have in a pinch, but this is the stuff that you should really consider giving. Now, this is the XP series. This is the racing oil. It's really expensive. This is like $20 to $22 a quart. $22 a quart. And this is a 12-quart box. There is an HR series, which is like semi-synthetic or conventional, and it's like it's really what is the zinc additive or zinc content is really what would have been around back in the 80s or 70s. I think I might have a couple extra bottles of it, or maybe not. I used to probably use it up on a oil change for a customer. But anyway, the HR5 would be your your daily driving oil that I would recommend. Any spirited high boost or even just normal boost, but if you're gonna have fun, get this oil, guys. It's expensive, I get it. Money doesn't grow on trees, but consider this a small insurance policy. Again, this lasts me 6 months, maybe stretch out to 8 months, but this is high quality oil. The other thing about this Driven brand in particular, especially the XP series, the XP 5 and 6, is that it has a very high tolerance for shear strength of oil. So shear strength is the ability for an oil to maintain its viscosity and its lubrication properties against, like oiling the camshaft and bearings and whatnot. The moment the oil starts to get too hot or wear out and you're losing your viscosity, your shear strength, that's when you risk the chance of spinning a bearing or a lobe on a camshaft or what have you. So I guess my two big selling points of this oil is the sheer viscosity strength and longevity of the oil properties, and plus the fact that it has a lot of zinc additives. I think if you were to Google this, there's a temperature chart that will tell you, it says right here, high temp, high shear protection. There's a temperature chart that shows you where in temperature range when the oil starts to degrade and start losing its value. And if you compare that to, let's say, Rotella or Castrol, you're going to see the difference. And in this case, you do get what you pay for. So in this case, because it's $20 to $22, I can't remember, a quart, you're getting a high quality oil. Now, I bought this. I'm a distributor of this now, so this is my first box I got as a distributor. But prior to that, you can get these off of Amazon or Summit Racing. It's best to get a 12 case like I have here. It stretches out your savings. For my car, being that I need about 7 to 9 quarts, I can't remember, we're gonna find out together. I mean, overall it's 9 quarts, but you gotta remember there's some oil left over in the oil cooler and the oil line, so there's gonna be about a quart or more left over. But my point is, if you buy a couple of these boxes over the course of a year or two, in the long run, you're going to save some money. So that's how I do it. And plus my other Z uses the same oil. So let's go ahead and get started. As I said a minute ago, I do pre-fill this filter. I understand that if you're using the filter location on the factory VG30, where it's at the weird angle, you're going to make a mess. I understand that. Try your best to put some in there. It's going to make a mess. It is, like I always say, it is what it is. So, yeah, so I just thought I saw a little bit of dirt in there, but that was just a reflection. So fill it up like, I don't know, 6/8 of the way or 7/8 of the way, and then drop in the media. You don't want it to have an overflow, which it just freaking did. Wonderful. Yeah, look at that mistake I just made, guys. My expensive oil coming out. So laugh if you want. I'm laughing with you. Problem is it's slowly going through the screen there. That's why it overflowed. All right. Almost. Okay. So it wasn't much of a loss. Only a little bit came out. Come on. There we go. All right, cool. Let me get a rag. Sorry about that, guys. Kind of made a newbie mistake there. All right, so fill it up as much as you can. In my situation here, it's really easy because the filter sits pretty much straight up and down. And check that out. See, I did that on purpose. It's already pre-lubed now. So I'm just topping it off. All right, that's good. So get your filler, adapter, cap, thingamajig, whatever you want to call it. Lube up the O-rings. Now, one thing I slipped my mind with, hopefully that won't tip, is I need to go clean the threads off the oil filter relocation mount bracket dealio. So let's go do that real quick before I get too carried away. I'll get a couple paper towels. And now I'm not going to use brake parts cleaner. I'm just gonna wipe it off. And I don't have my flashlight with me, so you're gonna have to just kind of trust that I'm cleaning good, cleaning well, good and well. Actually, let me get my flashlight. I want to show you how high quality this relocation bracket is. And this bracket, by the way, is a K&P bracket, and I think it was about 200 bucks. And it has dash 10 or orb 10, whatever you want to call it, threads for your AN filters, or AN lines, I mean. All right, so let me get my flashlight. I just want to show you that real quick, and that way we can move on. Can't remember which flashlight we're using. There we go. Just give me one quick second. It's kind of dirty. All right, so check this out. Oops. All right, so I was hoping you can maybe see how smooth the radius machining of this billet aluminum oil filter relocation mount, but it's kind of hard to see. I just want to show you the high quality. If you get the stuff off of Amazon or eBay, it's not radius, dude. It's really sharp edged. You're gonna have a possibility of shearing your oil. And I've seen, I think my buddy who got an eBay one was complaining that it was leaking like crazy, and I believe it. Some of those are just like, I don't know how they're bought and sold without many people complaining, because it's like low quality, you know, you get what you pay for type products that are off eBay. But just kind of FYI there. All right, so it's been cleaned. Let's go ahead and put the filter on. Now I do use the filter wrench to actually install it, primarily because it's a big filter, and you know, I really don't want to go wrenching on it with my hands if I have a cool tool to install it. So let me kind of coax it on there and catch the first threads. It's kind of, there we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. Still got a little bit of oil from my accidental spill. I need to get that wire tucked away better. All right, okay. Let me get some paper towels. Longest oil change ever, you know? Cripes. Jiffy Lube makes me feel like a noob. Nah, just kind of being slow and methodical here for you. I just want to show you what's involved with my oil change. Not a big deal. All right, so I just cleaned it. And I'm gonna get the filter wrench here. And I'm just gonna kind of not go all gorilla tight. I just wanna get essentially pinky tight, because you do have to get it off when you're done. All right, so I'm good with that. And I didn't put much elbow grease. I don't know if it looked like I was going crazy on it. I just wanted to be slow and feel it get tight. So let me get some brake parts cleaner on this paper towel, so if there's any film left on there, that it takes it off. I don't want the film attracting a lot of dirt while I'm driving. So yeah, this one's done. All right. Okay, let me just wipe it off. And then we will lower the car down and put some oil in there. And then after that, I'm gonna tell you about my next project. I got a couple of projects I wanna do this winter. One is Z related, the wide body, and the other one's actually my Xterra. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. All right, so I promised I would not forget to change out this crush washer. I almost did, and I just saw it staring at me. So let's change out that crush gasket real quick. Whoops. All right. A little more oil wanted to come out. So I have in my toolbox a collection of crush washers, because you never know when you're going to need it. But I think I have some OEM ones that the dealership gave me, so we'll try those first. Yeah, so check that out. Move this stuff. My little junk drawer, if you will. So I got a couple of these OEM crush washers, so we'll use one of these. But I also have, and the reason why I'm showing you, because it's one of those things I think that you should just have or buy, because you never know. So these are on Amazon. I think I paid like $10 for this master kit of various sizes of aluminum crush. This is copper. You can use aluminum, it's fine. So the kit has all different sizes of metric crush washers. So again, this is the drain plug is an M12 by 125. So we have, 40 crush washers. But I haven't even dipped into this kit yet. So I have a few left of the OEM ones. So the Nismo one is thick. It looks like a drain plug for like an oil diff cover, but we gotta get that thing off. Now, some of you might ask, do you always have to replace the crush washer? Not always. You can maybe go a few oil changes based on thickness. Now, quite honestly, guys, this is a very thick crush washer, a lot thicker than the Nissan ones they use in the dealership. I'm going to go ahead and reuse it because I don't see any deformation, any burrs. It looks good. Obviously, if it starts leaking, that's on me. But I don't see a problem here with it. I'm going to go ahead and use it. Let's just clean it up a little bit. Get the threads cleaned. Unfortunately, I dropped it, which makes me feel like a noob, but it's okay. All right. I guarantee you it's not going to leak. I probably change the crush washer every like 4th or 5th oil change on the car. Some of you might be screaming saying you got to do it every single time. I don't think so. I do it when I start noticing that the copper or aluminum is really starting to get deformed or like mushroom headed, if you will. When you start seeing that, that's when you should change it. But this thing is, the crush washer is super thick, and it makes me wonder if, you know, Nismo did that for a specific reason, for frequent use, or, you know, few usages. So let's just wipe off the little bead of sweat from the oil drain. All right, cool. So we're done underneath the car. Really nothing else to go over. So let's go ahead and get this oil drain out of the way. All right, so let's put oil in the car, and then after that I want to talk about my next upcoming project. It's not a big project, but I'm gonna make a video about it and go from there. So we're lowering the car down. Look at the fitment of the Brimbos. There's like, you can put a credit card in between the barrel and the Brembo cab. That's funny. Really tight fitment. All right. Okay, so let's put some oil in the car. Got the oil filter in there, got the drain plug in there. By the way, on the VG30 and 33, they have an oil cap on the valve cover. Let me go show you a factory one. And I hate the factory cap. So here it is, the factory cap on this VG30. And the reason why I hate it is that it does these like sealing, like perma seal, where, you know, based on heat fluctuation and whatever, it like does not want to come off. And oftentimes I hear people like having to take like a socket extension, they're hammering to break this loose, and then you'll break off one of these 5 grip points. If you get the J30, which this is just the one I got, it's actually one of those click lock ones from factory. So this is a factory J30 oil cap. You hear that click, you know, and so it doesn't get extremely tight, and then it just comes out really nicely. So this is a factory J30 valve cover oil cap. So just kind of a heads up on that. There's a lot of aftermarket caps. Anything Z32 will fit, by the way, just kind of a heads up. All right, so got some funnels here, Wallow funnels. I think the one I primarily use, I think it's this guy, specifically for the reasons of that strut towered brace bar kind of being right in the way. Yeah, so this will work just fine. It's pretty narrow in there, so it's going to be a slow fill, especially as I said that it's cold here and oil drains slower. All right, so always check your funnels to make sure that the funnels are clean and there's no contaminants. During the summer, with whatever type of season it is, like I'll have pollen come in here and coat. It's just really weird. Pollen gets everywhere. And then when I mow, if it kicks up any dirt, the dirt will come in here. So it kind of sucks. So I always make sure that this is clean. You don't want dirt getting straight to your oil almost right away. That's not cool. All right, so it's a little smudge I want to clean off real quick. All right, so we put in there roughly 2/3 of a quart, and I'm going to keep count of how much oil is going there. I think it's going to be roughly 8 quarts, if I remember. Now again, this is a Moroso oil pan for the Z32. You are to use a Z32 dipstick, not a VG30 or 33 dipstick. You have to use a Z32 dipstick for that specific reason. The point I was getting at is keep an eye on the oil level as you're filling it up. But the Moroso advertising, you know, I can't remember the capacity it advertised it to be at. Unfortunately, the pan had to be a little bit modified because of the power steering rack was kind of tighter positioned than it is on a Z32. So I had to cut off and remove about, I don't know, like a 3/8 of an inch of material and weld it back on to clear the part of the steering rack. And then, so I lost a little bit of capacity, but I'm sure I made up for it with the bigger oil filter, oil cooler, and all those AN lines. This oil is going to take forever to fill up. I'm going to see if my other bigger filter, I say filter, I mean funnel. I'm going to see if that's going to go by a little bit quicker. This is taking forever. So let me try, see if there's another one. Haven't quite figured out a good, perfect setup for that yet. Let's see, that one's not much bigger. Good grief. Yeah, you know, really none of these are gonna be any better. Let's try this guy. This one might work out pretty well. So it's clean. Yeah, we'll try this one. I'm sorry about that. It's just annoying how slow it's going. Paper towel. Okay, let's grab a couple. Bring the box closer. Okay. So let's go ahead and put this guy right here. Good. Let's see if I can get, yeah, it's a little better. That Shred Tower brace bar, I tell you, yeah, that'll work. It's just kind of at a weird angle. It'll work just fine. Looks like I need to go and look for better funnels. So, almost done. One thing I hate is when you accidentally spill and it gets on your exhaust and it starts smoking and it, you know, it takes forever for it to burn off, especially when you have heat wrap like I do on your exhaust manifolds. And it just, man, that sucks, you know. What a pain that is. But thankfully, this is working. Not the preferred scenario, but it's working. All right, so we got 2 in so far. But mind you, 2/3 of that first quart was in the oil filter itself. So actually, we're gonna discount that first quart roughly and just go straight to saying this is now the second quart. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter how you look at it. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around how much I need to put in here. Like I said, I don't change oil that often. So number 4 right here. I actually squeeze it to help, you know, push it out. And guess what? My battery's getting low again on the GoPro. So I'm going to change the battery again. They don't last very long, these batteries. I get like an hour based on the video settings I have. I think they make extended batteries. Maybe something I need to look into. Let's see, where am I at? I'm at 14%. Let me change the battery, be right back. Okay, new battery. let's keep going. So this is number 5 right now. And we're just gonna keep going on with oil. So I think what I'll do is at number 6, I'll check the dipstick and see where we register. Now, I always want to, I'm not gonna start the car tonight, but I'm gonna crank it over. Well, it might fire up on that note, but you wanna circulate a little bit of oil and then check again, because you know, there's gonna be some dry areas to refill with, you know, drain the oil. Obviously, you know, I pre-filled the oil filter, so that's a huge cavity that's now filled. So, yeah, this is number 6. So after this one, let's check the oil level on the dipstick and see where we're at. I think I'm gonna either get to 7 or 8 is my guess. So not too bad of a process. You guys are probably laughing through your teeth now, like, holy crap, this is the longest oil change ever. And you're not joking, it really is. That filter takes up all the time of changing the oil in the car. But, you know, obviously I am a chatterbox, as my daughter would say. So, definitely a talker. But let's check the oil level here. So, like I said, this is a Z32 dipstick and tube setup, you know. I cut off the yellow end and put this, I think it's called Z MFG, whatever they're called. They make a lot of cool Z bling bling for your engine bay. So it's kind of fitting, I guess, for my setup with a lot of polished aluminum. All right, so, and you can tell this is like a fairly new dipstick. All right, so let's see where we're at now. My honest guess is going to be 7 or 8. That's my guess. So let's see where we're at. So nothing yet. It's picking up a little bit of residual that's on the tube, you know, going down in there. Let's do it one more time. I didn't see that it was actually registering yet. This is a huge oil pan. Yeah, it's not really registering anything yet. So let's keep going. We'll do, I think it's gonna be 8, because if it's not registering right now at 6, you know, putting number 7 in there, it might register at the tail end of 7. I think we're gonna end up at 8. So we'll go. Drop the cap. So there we go, number 7. What's crazy is my diesel Titan I used to have. I had a 2017 Titan XD Platinum Reserve diesel, and I remember changing that thing, changing the oil on it, and it was like 2.5 gallons. And then in comparison, like, I don't know how much gallons are in all the math in quarts, but like, I think it's close to what I have going on here. So it's kind of funny how much oil this little V6 is consuming. Yeah, let's see, is it even registering yet? Yeah, now it's registering. So there we go. If you could look on the camera, it's about halfway up the low to high side. So we'll put half a quart in and see where that puts us. Let me just keep this out, I guess. Yeah, we'll put half a quart in for number 8. And my guess is it's going to take the whole quart. That's my guess. And then remind you that there is a, you know, AN lines and an oil filter or an oil cooler. That's probably more than a quart. So this is probably a true 9 quart, if not over 9 quart oil pan setup. Let's see, almost half. Okay, that's probably half. Let's see where that put us. And the thing is, like, even after this says full, I'm going to crank it over and get that oil cycling, and then it'll be, you know, needing a little bit more. So now it's reading, it's kind of not giving me a good, that wasn't a good register. Let me try it again. That was weird. I metered less than last time. I probably didn't. There's a little lip inside the oil pan where it's a little edge where the dipstick is catching sometimes. I have to spin it. All right, so now it's reading correctly. So it's right under the high mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of that number 8 in there and crank it over. And I bet you that's where it needs to be. So let's put the rest of this in here. And I bet that's it. All right. Cool. All right, so let's crank it over. I really don't want to start it. I'd rather just crank it a few times to get oil circulating and go from there. Trying to be careful. All right. So if you look, yeah, I guess it started, you know. Oil pressure is rising. Let's bring it up to full operating pressure. I'm running the Z32 oil pressure sender, which uses the same connector as the Z31 8739. So it's fully compatible with the Z31. I found that they're more accurate than the Z31's oil pressure sender. So it's slowly building pressure. That's good enough. So let's check to see where we got with the oil level at that point. I think my guess is we're good. I don't think we're gonna need to add any bit. So let me get my paper towel over here. I was actually a little surprised it fired up that easily. Usually when it's this cold, it does not want to start. Yeah, you can tell like the oil got circulated because it's a little dirty now. So there's, you know, unfortunately, unless you do an oil flush, you're not going to get every bit of that old dirty oil out, and that's okay. Yeah, now we're full. Just barely. I mean, there's a little bit, you can see I can add a little bit, but I'm not going to open another quart just to add a tiny bit. So I'm calling that good. So like I said, I put 8 quarts in. I need to remember that in the future. Just put 8 in there versus the waiting guessing game. But now I have 4 quarts for my next oil change, where I need another 4 quarts after that. So, all right. So let me put this all away. What I do, I don't go straight to cleaning my funnels. I put a bit of paper towel in there like that, and I hang it, and then all the oil will drain and then collect at the base of the funnel, and you just pull it out when you're done or when you want to use it next time. And when they're this small like that, I just put a, I think it's, yeah, paper towel in there. And you just do like that. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, so let me put the oil cap on. Let's see. You do want to make a good habit of checking your oil cap for any condensation or sludge. It kind of paints a picture of what's going on with your evap, or not your evap, your PCV valve, and you know, it tells you what's going on. So in this case, I didn't see any condensation buildup. Thankfully, no evidence of a blown head gasket. It was just, you know, old oil. So, all right. So let me put the oil cap back on, and then we can talk about my next project, and then we'll wrap it up for today's little how I do oil change video. I'll go ahead and just fully close the hood because I think we are done. So tomorrow I need to wash the car. I'm actually going down to a different state tomorrow for work, so I want to wash it. All right, so real quick, the project I want to work on, I'm probably going to do it starting tomorrow when I get home from work, is the wide body. The brakes on the car is what I'm going to change out. So on the car right now, I have the first gen CTSV four pot Brembos. It's a very common, popular upgrade for a lot of chassis. Just not just Nissan or the Z or the S chassis. A lot of other manufacturers like Toyota will, or even WRXs and Subis will take them. So I've had one successful track day with the car. It's in another video. You can see me just hot lapping. I lost confidence in the brakes. Now, what that means is brake confidence loss. It means that the performance aspect of the brakes were essentially not satisfactory, and that as a driver, I can notice that the performance was going downhill. Now, granted, the pads I have in the car are those Power Stop Extreme Z26 series, whatever they're called. Those require you to actually heat cycle the pads. No, I did break them in correctly. I did, but they still require the pad to be warmed up and heat cycle a little bit before they actually start working better. I believe I had done that, but the issue is I didn't feel satisfied with the braking performance. So again, it has a CTSV 4-pot Brembos. They're big 4-pots. They're huge, much bigger than the 350Z, much bigger than the Akibono from the 370Z. The calipers themselves, pads themselves are bigger. The rear caliper setup I have are the R34 GTR 2-pot Brembos. They bolt straight up to a Z32 knuckle, or upright if you will. And then the rotor diameter is a 12-inch rotor in the rear, and I have the 350Z's 12.76, whatever it is. So it's a well-balanced setup. It just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. On the 89, I've had these for a while. These are the CTSV 2nd gen 6-pot Brembos. And then the rears are, like I said a minute ago, was the CTSV 2nd gen 4-pot, or also the SRT8s. They're the same Brembos. So 6-pot, 4-pot, well-balanced setup. These brakes are phenomenal. They perform. There's not a lot of heat fade. I haven't had any loss of confidence in the braking performance of these calipers. And the pads I have on this are just I think there's Wagner's semi-metallic off-the-shelf pads you get from like O'Reilly's or whatever. Really satisfied with the braking performance of this car. Not so much on this car. Granted, this car is like almost, I guess not quite double, but significantly more horsepower than the 89. So the question is, well, why didn't you go to the 6-pots like you did on the 89? Well, the 89 has 18-inch wheels, and the rotors on the, for this setup are the 370Z 14-inch rotors. I had a heck of a time getting these calipers that both fit front and rear. Matter of fact, you might hate me for saying this, I had to take a a flap disc, disc on my angle grinder, and barely carefully remove some material off the hat of the caliper to get it to fit the wheel correctly. Now, before you get all mad at me saying, oh, that's not safe, I've had it on here for like 10 years, since like, well, maybe not 10 years, maybe 8 years, never had an issue. So, I mean, again, don't get all engineering on me, it's fine. So, but these are 17-inch wheels. In my mind, I thought, well, these are 17s, these are 18s. I had a heck of a time getting these to fit. There's no way the 6-pot combination is going to work on this car. Well, I'm wrong. So on these Motegi wheels, I have the inside measurement on the barrels on the inside. I measured it the other day. It was 15 3/4. And on the 17s, on these BBSs, I measured the inside diameter is 16 3/8. And you're like, well, how the heck are 17-inch wheels a wider inside diameter than your 18-inch wheels? Well, if you look at the design of these wheels, it tapers. It tapers from here and goes upwards. And it's because of the design of how these 5-spoke, how they look like these are a 1-piece wheel, but it's the design aspect for how it looks like it's like a 2-piece wheel. So it's like, it's a cool wheel. It's a really nice wheel. But I kind of got screwed on how it tapers inward. It limited my ability to put a big brake hit. I mean, I succeeded. But on these are just straight barrels. There's no, on these 3-piece BBS wheels, it's just inner diameter. There's no taper really on the inside. You see an edge here, a lip. Yeah, that's just part of the outer barrel. But on the in barrel, it's just straight barrel. So they're actually wider on the inside than my 18s. So with that said, I already sold those Brembos. They're already sold. I have like 1,000 miles on them. And over here, I'm not sure if you've already seen, but here are the CTSV 6-pots. These are huge. So I already test fit it, and it did rub a little bit right there, not much. So I need to kind of, with a flap disc, take that down a little bit, and then I'll be ready to put those on. And here's the pads that I got, and these are the same ones that's on the wide body now, but for the first gen. These are the pads. These things, look how big this is. These are bigger, or maybe as big as a $1 bill or a $20 bill. These are huge. I think I have a tape measure here. So check that out. 7.5 inches is the length of that pad. Surface height engagement is roughly 2 3/8. So, or is that right? 2 3/8? Let's measure again. No, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. 2.5, almost 2 3/4. My bad. Yeah, so these huge pad setup. These are amazing calipers. So I'm getting ready to put these in the car. I will make a video of swapping out the Brembos, and I'll be very glad to show like a direct comparison of 1st gen and 2nd gen CTSV calipers. I am just waiting on the rear brackets to show up. Bought them a week ago and they haven't even shipped yet, so it's kind of upsetting. But here are the front brackets for the caliper, and I already got them mocked up. You have to remove a little bit of material to clear, but they're already ready to go for the front anyways. And then just to show you what the rears look like, let's check these out. And like I said, I'll make a video, probably end up repeating myself as I go through this all. But here's the rear SRT8 or CTSV Brembos. What's funny is that these are bigger than the Z32 front calipers, the Z32 factories. These are bigger, and these are meant for the rear. That's just kind of a funny thought. But anyways, yeah, I'm just waiting on the bracket for these, the adaption bracket. Otherwise, I'd be probably working on it tonight versus doing an oil change. But anyways, yeah, that's what I'm working on the wide body. And I mentioned I'll be doing 2 projects. The other project I'll be working on is the Xterra, if I get around to it this winter. I really want to do it. So it's up on the lift there because it's too cold to be driving it. But the other project I want to do is I want to put a big supercharger on it. About a year and a half ago, out of boredom, I bought the M62 supercharger from a stock supercharged Xterra Frontier. I bolted it on, and this is turbocharged. I turbocharge it, so I had the turbo feeding into the supercharger. That's called a compound twin charge setup. It's a thing. Like a lot of Pontiac guys do it with the Grand Prix, because the Pontiacs come with a M90 supercharger from factory, and they put they put a turbo in front of it to help feed it in, and you get compound boost. So it's a real thing. Audi does it with some of their cars. Volkswagen do it with some of their cars. Volvo does it. A lot of Europeans apparently still do it or have done it. So it's a technology. It's a thing. It's not just like a wishful thinking. So what I want to do is the supercharger I have already bought is an M122. It's the biggest M series supercharger you can get. It's from the GT500, the Mustang, the Ford GT500. So I picked one up off of Facebook Marketplace for a hell of a deal. It was like $500, and the rotors look amazing on it. And it's just super clean. I don't have to send it off. The bearings feel good. The bushing feels good. There's nothing I need to do to it. And what I like about it is it's form fitting. Like as far as the fitment is very similar to how it is on the factory supercharger for the Xterra, meaning like the side entry for the elbow for the throttle body. It's exactly the same location as it is on the Xterra. It's a different design, so I'll have to fab stuff up, weld some stuff up. I'll have to weld up my own adapter plate to get to fit. So that's not even the concern. That's not even the challenge for me. The challenge I have is I'll have to go to Megasquirt on the Xterra. Right now I'm running the supercharged injectors and the supercharged ECU on the turbo setup, and it works great. It's not ideal, but it works great. I've had it on there for like 4 years, and there's never been an issue with like detonation or leaning out. But I'm getting bored, and I want to go bigger power on the Xterra. And I think like people find it crazy that I'm taking this, the VG33, and putting power through on Xterra. But it's just something I like to do. I like to mess around with stuff. Winter is usually when I do that. But anyways, guys, this is it for the video. Sorry it took as long as it did just to change the oil, but if you haven't noticed yet, I do talk a lot. I talk through the things I do. I talk through the reasonings of why I do things. As I told you earlier, I make mistakes with some of the wiring or plumbing I've done a while ago. Yep, I'm not perfect. I'll work through it. But I can't think of anything else to go through at the moment. But again, if you guys have any comment suggestions, if you saw something that was weird and need some clarification, or if there's something that I could have done differently to make it go better, let me know. Again, I do this for fun and for hobby. I am not what you would say like a car builder professional. This is something as a hobby. And if you didn't know, what I actually do for a living is I'm an IT manager, and I work for a hospital. So that's actually my career path. I'm an IT guy. I'm not really an automotive professional. I do this for fun. I do this on the side, and I care about detail, and my passion is cars. So anyways, blah, blah, blah. So if you had that curiosity itch, hope I satisfied that. But anyways, as always, please like, subscribe, tell your friends and family about this channel. I'm trying to grow it, trying to make it bigger and better. I'm trying to do more videos. My wife was telling me, get out there, do basic videos, get your channel growing. So that's what I'm trying to do. So like I said, tomorrow, I'm probably going to, if I get the brackets, I'm going to probably do the caliper swap out. It might be a couple part video because I don't have the rear brackets yet for the adapters. So I'm kind of in a limbo waiting mode right now, but I did sell the brackets or the Brembos off this car. So I need to get them out and shipped off to the guy who bought them. So tomorrow I'll probably pull them. But anyways, that's it, guys. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk later. Talk to you.